What's cracking, everyone? Friedemann Findeisen here from Holistic Songwriting, and welcome to Livestream number, believe it, 100. That is a big number, and hold on, let me just try to figure out how to turn off the sound on my iPad here. Well, I can't apparently because it's live. Okay, well, I guess that's how it's going to be. So, since this is episode 100, I thought I'd let you guys in a little bit on what's going on over here at Holistic Songwriting headquarters and what I'm currently working on. So, as you guys know, the last big project that I put out was this here book, The Tracking Journal. The journal-only edition of this is already out. It's a little difficult to find yet, but I will make sure to link it once it's properly set up in the SEO and everything, so you can find it a little bit easier on Amazon. But there is already a journal-only edition of this, and that's what it's called, the journal-only edition. So it is on Amazon. If you search for it, you will find it. Although, yeah, a little tricky, but I will send out an email blast once everything is cleared with that. Second thing is next month, I'm starting my very first Kickstarter, and I'm kind of excited because this is a big deal for me. I'm a huge fan of Kickstarter. I think Kickstarter is one of the most amazing things for creators out there. As I am a huge fan of DIY, as you guys know, I do everything with Holistic Songwriting pretty much by myself. I am hugely enamored with the idea of Kickstarter, and so I'm really excited to get that going. So what am I kickstarting? Well, this is what I want to show you guys today, and you will be the first ones to properly see this. So I've teasered this before on Instagram and a couple other social media channels, but this is the first time I'm publicly actually showing it in a video. This is what I'm kickstarting. This is the songwriting deck. So this is a pack of cards, and this one here is the melody deck. There's two more decks, which I will reveal at a later point. Today, I just want to show you guys this packet here. So this is the melody deck. And as you can see, it has a little bit of notation here at the front. If you draw two cards, put them next to each other, you get yourself a melody. And that's kind of the one of the ideas that you get on this deck here. So it's an inspiration tool. It's also an exercise tool. So you can use this to come up with melodies, or you could use it to kind of set yourself a challenge to make life a little bit more difficult for you. If you're constantly rewriting the same melodies and you feel like you need some fresh ideas, this would be a really cool way to spice things up and to challenge yourself with something that's a little bit out of your comfort zone. And that's just the fronts of them, because on the back, we have a little bit more. On the back, we got prompts. So while on the front, we have these melodies, on the back, we got exercises. So, for example, this one here has a prompt, which means a challenge for yourself that has to do with melodies. And as you can see, there's like stars up here right above that. So this one is a 3-star exercise. So this one is going to be a little bit more challenging. At the bottom, we have, there's another exercise, which I'm not going to go into. But then we have my favorite thing of all, and that's this little person down here. And it's kind of focusing right now. So this is an email you get from an industry professional. This might be anyone, might be a songwriter that you've written with before, or might be an A&R, might be another producer, might be someone from the movie industry, and they're looking for music, right? And so they're saying they're writing you an email saying something like, "Hey, we're looking for music for this new project that we're doing. It would need to be something like this," and they give you a specific prompt, and you're supposed to write music for them. So this is really, as I said, it's an exercise tool. And if you are a songwriter, the idea is every morning you draw two cards, or you draw a card, and you do an exercise with it. And therefore, break into the music industry and understand the industry a little better. Prepare yourself for what kind of prompts you might get, what kind of briefings you might get from clients, some of which have no idea how to talk music, so some of which are a little bit more challenging. And you kind of have to figure out what it is that they want. All that. And this is, as I said, it's just the melody deck. And there's tons of exercises hidden in these decks, which I will explain in the near future on YouTube. So the Kickstarter is currently planned for November 15. I'm not sure whether we're going to make that, but I'm trying my very best to release everything then. And then we have 30 days to make our funding goal. So I'm really excited about this. This is something I've been working on for a very long time. And actually, I could have released this, or I could have started the Kickstarter like 6 months ago, But I really like that's when I started writing on this, and I figured out as I was writing this, I was like, you know what, these products go so well together. I think they should be, this should go first and then the decks, because if you own this, you will know that this is all about habit building. It's all about getting stuff done. And the decks are the perfect tool if you want to build your songwriting through daily habits. It is really, honestly, it is the perfect tool just for that. It was created basically to work with this book. So that's something I'm really excited about. I'm currently talking to other YouTubers, and they're all really excited about it as well. I'm sending out some decks, and people are getting more and more buzzed about it. So, yeah, that is the big announcement for this year. That's what's coming out soon. I'll give you two more little details. These are a little more teasers, but a little more details here. The first of which is the album, the Kano Head record, now has an official release date. And I want to share this with you. How can I do that? Well, maybe I'll do that at some other point. But the Kano Head record is coming out February 2nd, 2020. So I've decided to push back a little bit. I wanted to release it on the 13th of October, which was my 30th birthday. But I've decided it makes sense to push it back a little further because I'm just not that far in the process of marketing this record. And I just wanted to, if I want to put it out, I want to do it right, with as much, I want to put as much work into it as I can. I have a lot of other stuff to do, but I'll give it my best and make sure that this gets the release that I think it deserves. I'm really, really proud of this record. And I don't think I would say this because I originally really wanted to release it on October 13th. If I wouldn't have gotten so much positive feedback for it. And I really have, so many people that, honestly, almost everyone that I've shown this to got really excited about it. And I got a lot of hey, I would actually listen to this. So I take this as a very good sign. And it's not just that they said it, but I could tell from their body language. People were smiling, people were bobbing their heads, people were looking at me. Oh, wow, this is actually something, So I'm really excited about it. And I also want to make a music video for it, which I originally didn't want to do because it's very expensive. But then I had a really cool idea for a video. And so that's something I'm currently working on as well, or that I am commissioning. And I think it's going to look very cool. Okay. Thirdly, another little announcement, and this is going to be a small announcement for now because nothing's set in stone yet. I don't have a release date. I don't even know when I'm going to go into production. Technically, I've already started because I'm always collecting ideas for it. But next year, I want to make the biggest course for holistic songwriting that I've ever made, and I think it's supposed to be. It's going to stay the biggest course for a long time because this is supposed to be the Holistic Songwriting Academy. So this is the main course. When you go to holisticsongwriting.com, this is the course that everyone is I want everyone to take this one course because in it I'm going to talk about the entire process from start to finish. How do you actually write a song? What are the different elements? And I'm going to explain how I learned how to write songs step by step, which is something I've really never done before. A lot of my other my other courses are more about theory and trying to understand how songwriting works. This new one is really a very practical course, and that's my number one thing. And holistic songwriting is kind of going through some changes, and a big change that I'm going through right now is going from this in-depth analytic explanation of how things work, as you could see in the artist series, for example, or in the master files that I put out, into a different kind of mode, which is the easy songwriting, which is the practical application of everything that I'm teaching. That's why I put out the tracking journal, which is all about putting stuff into practice and getting your ass out there. That's why I'm putting out the songwriting decks, which are again, it's a training tool. You draw 2 cards every morning and you write, that's all it is. It's only there to make you a better songwriter so that you actually start writing. And this next course that's coming out next year is going to be my magnum opus. I'm already really proud of it. I think I finally figured out a way in which I can teach songwriting. It's proven to be the most difficult challenge I've ever had to face in my life, and I'm not exaggerating here. It is an extremely difficult thing to teach songwriting because you can't honestly do everything. But I think I've finally figured out how I can actually teach it in a way that people will take something away from it. I have finally figured out some things, I want to stay vague here because things might eventually change, of course. But I think this is probably going to stay until the very end. I'm really happy with this new approach that I'm taking, and I think it's going to be a really, really cool course. Yeah. All right. So let's keep it at that for now. I could talk about more, but just to give you a first overview, I think this was enough information for one video. So, okay, that was a lot of talking. For 10 minutes, I think this is the longest intro that I've ever done. So let's move on and look at some questions for today. Okay, not quick enough. Hold on. All right, so let's start with a question from Nico, who says, "Hi, Friedemann. What are some deciding factors whether or not to use a pre-chorus in your song?" That's a good question. I think I would use a pre-chorus if, first of all, if my song is too short, if I have like a really short verse, then I'll definitely use a pre-chorus. Like if it's just too quick, like, because I want to build a little bit of tension before the chorus, and a good way to build tension, if you have good music, that is to just let them wait for it a little bit longer. Like, you don't want to make it feel like they're waiting, obviously. Like, if it's boring, you're dead. Like, there's just no way you're not getting out of that at all, right? But if you have great music and like something that is really engaging, and groove, for example, is a way to really get people engaged, but it's relatively short, I'm gonna pop in like a little pre-chorus to build a little bit more, to lengthen that section. I also might use it to just build more tension if I have a very a very resolved kind of verse, and this might happen if I have a very groovy verse, for example, like that's really focused on groove more so than storytelling. And the big difference between the two are groove is like an in the moment kind of thing. It's you feel comfortable in the moment, and a kind of story verse is something that has a certain drive. Like the lyrics are often like hinting at something that's about to come. There's more of a direction to it, and also the chords often have a certain drive. Whereas with groove, sometimes we just have one chord. Like what's the name? James Brown, for example, is a really good example for someone who writes groove-based songs. So very simple in terms of the chords. It's really all about the groove. It's all about the drum grooves. Yeah. Okay. So that's one reason I might use a pre-chorus, to then add a little bit of tension back into the song, so that the chorus will pop a little bit more, right? Honestly, most of the time, though, the way pre-choruses end up in my songs is just because I sing the verse, and because the way I come up with melodies is I'll just sing, right? I'm always singing my stuff. And when I sing a verse and I keep singing, and I'm like, and a new melody suggests itself, and I'm like, well, this is not quite a chorus, it's definitely not energetic enough, but I really like that melody, then I'll just write a pre-chorus around it. That's typically how it happens, right? Now, as I said, like, I'm a very rigid writer when it comes to every section. Like, I want every section to feel like everything in that section belongs to that section. I want people to always know where they are in the song. So you'll always know just by listening to the vocals, this is the verse, this is the pre-chorus, this is the chorus. Like, they're very clearly defined, right? So I keep reusing same motifs, I keep reusing melody ideas, sometimes lyrical ideas, to always tie everything back to that section, so we always know where we are in the song. And so if I'm improvising and coming up with a different melody that doesn't fit this verse, that is like just too different of an idea, then I'll turn that into a pre-chorus. I wanted to say that because what I also see a lot of people doing is their verses have no real structure, and it's just like a new melody here, just constantly new melodies. They're not really developing anything. They're just, putting out melody after melody after melody. And then putting out a pre-chorus just is completely pointless, because it doesn't feel like a different section if everything up until that point felt like you're constantly adding new sections. You know what I mean? So pre-choruses only really make sense if your verse is clearly defined as a verse. Otherwise, that break is not even going to be felt. So there you go. Next, we have a question by Francisco, who says, "Are modern pop songs equipped to stand the test of time? I feel like the faster a melody / song catches my ear, the faster it is forgotten. How does one write songs that will stay great 5 to 10 years down the road?" Man, it's the big question. I don't really know. I think you're onto something. I often think that songs that take a couple more listens are often the ones that stick stay with us longer. If we fall in love with the song after the first time listening to it, it's going to get boring rather quickly. But if we listen to it a couple of times and then fall in love with it, that's a really good indicator that that's going to be a song that's going to stay around for a little longer. If just for the fact that we have a little story to tell with that song, right? Like, oh, I hated that song at first, but then it grew on me, and now I'm a huge fan of it. Like, that's a little story that we tell ourselves that's like this beautiful change that you made, and, now you understand the world better or whatever. If just for that fact. But that being said, a lot of A&Rs, if they're looking for singles that to put out for a new record that one of their artists is releasing, they are actively looking for songs that are that will take a couple of times for you to fully grasp what the song is about. So they're looking obviously for catchy melodies. That's really, really important, right? They're looking for something that is instantly recognizable, that has an iconic vibe to it. But they are also very adamant about finding stuff that will not get boring after you've listened to it for 10, 20 times. Now, do they always succeed? We know they don't. But that is generally a thing that they definitely keep an eye out for. Or should I say, an ear out for. Okay. Yes. So how can we write a song that's going to be great 5 to 10 years down the road? I think songs are still great that are 5 to 10 years old that nobody's ever heard of. I think the goal should just never be fame. Honestly, I not that you're saying that, but just making a song that's going to be a classic in 10 years, I don't think is a good goal. Just write whatever music you think is great right now. That's, I think, the best way to say it. Now, sounds are going to get old. Things are going to sound a little old-fashioned in 10 years. That's also a reality. And in 20 years, today's music is going to sound old to young kids, and they're going to be like, what are you guys, like, they're going to tell us, like, what are you guys listening to, right? This is, like, super old, boring, vintage. Vintage would be probably too nice of a word. This old geezer stuff, right? Anyways, so I think the best we can do, honestly, is just write great music, write music that we're happy with, and I think we always have to find that balance between writing songs that are that are simple, that are easy enough to access, that are understandable for our audience, right? And something that also still interests us after we've written it, because sometimes we might write on a song for like a month or two, and it's really difficult to stay enthusiastic about the same piece of music for that amount of time. So it usually evolves, right? The final song is rarely the same as the first idea that we had, but so that's kind of what it is, man. It's difficult to say, and I don't think it's something that you can plan really. You can just try to write great music is honestly my answer. I know it's not a great answer, but that's kind of how it is. And you're absolutely right about what you said. Like, I feel like the faster a melody catches my ear, the faster it is forgotten. That is true. Although there's also songs that do this really well, that have one section that just kind of catches your ear, that kind of keeps you interested, and the rest of the song that's a little bit more difficult to grasp. I think there was a song called The Riddle by some Italian DJ or something, which I thought was quite interesting. Like, that had some more challenging parts to it for sure. Or something like Major Tom, right? Like maybe a more popular example, which is, instantly recognizable, has a certain iconic vibe, even the first time you listen to it. And yet, there's definitely some more challenging stuff in there, right? So, Coupling, or Creep by Radiohead, right? Coupling something that is really, really, that you're really used to, something that feels iconic and simple, with something that's a little more challenging is also a good way to go, typically. So, but, the real answer is honestly just try to write good music that you enjoy. That's the most important part. Don't ever try to write music that you think other people will enjoy. Write the stuff that you love, and others will as well. Okay. Eric says, if the song you're working on is for a specific purpose that requires it to be shorter or longer than the average track, what are some arrangement tips that help to either lengthen or shorten a song without compromising it too much? Well, the first thing that comes to mind for me is straight away is cutting out the second verse and chorus, right? So you go verse, chorus, bridge, chorus, right? Or you could just go verse, chorus. You could cut out the intro, come straight in with the vocals, like, if you do that, make sure you don't overload your arrangement at that point. I think a really good thing to do there is just have like one other instrument, typically the harmony instrument, and vocals like guitar or maybe a bass with the guitar, with the vocals, but never like 3 instruments at the same time. Like that's a little too much to take in, right? So keep it very simple at the beginning. I don't like, because there's a lot of rock bands that will come in like with all guns blazing and just everyone playing all at the same time, plus the vocals. Like it's fine to come in with, you know, all guns blazing, just don't also add the vocals on top of that. It's a little too much. Okay. Right. So I think 3 elements max. You can have some drum groove, but like keep it very, very simple. Like I have that on a couple of songs on the Kanoid record. Actually just one, but there's drums, guitars, or one guitar and vocals. And I try to keep it sparse. So this is one of the only moments in the record, for example, where the guitars are not doubled. It's just one guitar panned slightly to the left, just to keep it as simple as possible. So people at like, because they only have like a second to hear all these 3 elements, instantly understand every single element that's on there. That's in that arrangement. Just throw out some sections. You're gonna need some repetition, but honestly, something I would look for, like I would look to something like theme songs, right? Like if you look at something like the Pokemon theme song, for example, how does that develop, right? That's something that I would take another look at, because that is music that I think is really highly effective. A lot of people know it and can sing it by heart. So just go to songs like that and study how they are structured, like what makes them work. Now, if you have something that is so this is in case it's supposed to sound like a song, yeah. If your client wants something that doesn't necessarily sound like a song and they just want like an exciting piece of music, then typically the structure I would use is just building, right? Just get bigger, bigger, bigger. That's pretty much what I would do. It's just the easiest one. Definitely you want to end on a big note, or like when the most important part of the video happens, like when they introduce their product or whatever it is, that's when you want to have your most exciting or most emotional moment in the music as well. So you can kind of structure it around the music, around the movie, like that. If the movie's longer, like if you have to lengthen things, then things get a little bit more interesting, I think. You can throw in a couple of instrumentals if it's still supposed to sound like a song. You can add in like a solo potentially if it's a simple solo that you can turn down quite a lot so that it doesn't distract from what's going on screen. Again, I forward you to something like the Pokemon theme song, which is obviously very condensed. There's a lot of stuff happening in a very short amount of time. And this might be actually a better thing for shorter clips, but there's definitely a lot of inspiration in things like that. At least for me, I think that it's a really interesting piece of music for sure. How else could you lengthen it? I mean, you could do another bridge chorus after the last chorus. You could like something like what Happy does in like the Pharrell song. You could write a second bridge and then add another chorus. And then you can write different kinds of choruses, one where it's just drums and vocals, or where the drums are, missing, like you have a sort of down chorus. There's all different things that you can do to lengthen a track. But don't stretch the individual sections. I would never, ever write a verse that is just twice as long just to stretch it. I don't think that's a good idea. I don't think that's a good thing. For movies, like if it's supposed to be under a movie, then you can sometimes do that because there's already so much going on with like dialogue and stuff like that it's often better if we repeat a little bit more, if we just stretch out sections a little bit more, because time is perceived very differently if people are actually talking. But generally, that's something I don't really do. Okay. And also, interestingly enough, having music that evolves a lot in the background is something that is less notable than music that kind of stays the same. If we have too much of the same going on in the background, it can also be very notable and people will pay attention to it. It's a difficult kind of, that's why John Williams music, for example, if you listen to it on a record, there's so much stuff going on. If you watch the movie, it blends right in, right? Okay. Ater says, "Hi Friedemann, if you were given the right to ask an all-knowing music god anything you wanted to know, what would you ask?" Oh, that's a good one. Oh, damn, I wish I'd read that one before and could have made up an answer, like a really clever one. It probably would be something about melody writing. Like I would really want to know how to write the perfect hook. It's something like there's just so many parts to it, and it's It's really difficult to teach. Like, I would probably ask myself, like, how would you teach someone how to write a great hook? Like, I know I can do it. Like, I've written so many hooks in my life, but and there's definitely some techniques I can teach people, and a lot of it is in the hook and melody master files. But still, like, you could follow all those tips and still write a crappy melody. It's really difficult to teach. So I think that's probably what I'd ask him. That's probably the one thing. Yeah, it would probably be something like that. It would definitely be something like, how could I teach someone how to do this better? Like, yeah, because I'm always just really interested in how to teach things and how to help others. So it would probably ask for someone else. Yeah, because I know some people who are really struggling with melodies, and they're not getting far with their songs, and it really frustrates me because they get everything else right. They understand arrangement, they understand the technicalities of music, they understand the technique. It's just that their melodies aren't good enough. And this is like, I see so many people fail because their hooks aren't strong enough. And so, yeah, to help those people, that's what I'd ask, I think. Yeah. How's that for an answer? Okay. Sam says, do you have a favorite analog delay? What's your thought about analog versus digital delay? Do you have any delay plugin recommendations? There's a couple. H delay is just, honestly, it's just one of the best. It's just really, really great. And everyone I talk to in this industry just seems to agree. Like, everyone just says, like, H delay by Waves is just a really good I heard that one before. Because I ask a lot of people questions like that, and the H1, the H delay always comes up. Everyone loves the H delay. So that's a really good one. I don't have a favorite analog one. I do have a favorite analog reverb, and that's the Lexicon is really, really great. There's, what is it called? The L, whatever it is. L480, is that what it is? Let me check. L480. Reverb. LX480, is that what it is? No, not Eventide. Lexicon 480L. That's what it is. 480L, the other way around. Yeah. That's my favorite reverb. I love that sound. For me, it's the perfect reverb. And I don't have it as an analog reverb, unfortunately. I only have the plugin, but I have the one by what is it called? Universal Audio, and it is fantastic. It just sounds, I love it. It's the perfect reverb for me. I absolutely adore it. Okay. So as for delays, no, not really. H delay it's still the best, in my opinion. Like, I just keep using that. It's just really good. Alvaro says, hi Fried, I'm loving the tracking journal. That plus the addiction formula is like my bread and butter. Dude, thank you so much. I'm really happy to hear that. I've gotten a lot of positive feedback for the book, and yeah, thanks, man. It means a lot because I write these books to help, and it just always makes me so happy to hear people are getting something out of them. And I've gotten so many nice comments, and people have posted pictures online reading it, and I'm getting really excited. And it's a very emotional thing for me to see someone, like, there was one picture of a guy, for example, who was like sitting at their pool or whatever, reading the tracking journal, and it's just like, it just fills me with glee. So thank you so much. Can you talk about fetus and the life of a writer? So fetus is this concept here in the book that's all about prioritizing certain projects over others, right? Now, I'm not going to go into what I define as a project because it's a little bit different than what most people would probably call a project. That's all in the book. Fetus is the idea of, like, it's these 5 different things that you rank your project in, and then, like, on a scale from 1 to 10, right? And then you add those all together. And whatever value you arrive at, like, the higher it is, the more important your project is, then the more you should consider doing it next. The life of a writer. So a writer is, I talk about 4 personality types in the book. And basically what it comes down to is, in order to be successful in this world, you need to be a writer. And a writer is someone who has both a running engine, so who's working on their own engine, and at the same time is putting out stuff, right? Who's using their engine. Because there's a lot of people out there who are just working on their engine. Like, they're watching YouTube videos all day, they're reading a lot of books, but they're not doing anything. There's a lot of people who are doing a lot of stuff, but they have no clue what they're doing. And there's a lot of people who have no clue. Like they're not working on their engine and they're not putting anything out. They're just completely lost. So you get that as well. And so that's kind of what we try to avoid with the book. We're trying to have to work on our engine first and foremost, and put out stuff constantly, like those two things. And the first one, working on your engine, is done through habits. So working on yourself daily through little exercises like the songwriting decks. And that's why I said I released this first, because I think that really ties in well together. And putting stuff out there is what I call projects, right? It's to help others or to create value that other people can use, whether that's through music or anything, right? So it's those two sides of things. And if we have accomplished both, if we're daily working on ourselves daily and have those habits that are there for our personal health and to make us better as human beings, so smarter, healthier, and happier, those are like the three things we strive for in those three areas of physicality, emotion, and wits. Then if we have that side, that's our engine. And if the other side, if we also are producing stuff for the outside world in any shape or form, like making other people's lives better, then we are giving to the world, and people who give are also the ones who receive. That's kind of the basic idea behind the life of a writer. Okay, hopefully that was enough. I don't know what else you wanted me to say, but that's kind of it. All right, next we have a comment from Beretta, who says, "Hi Friedemann, in your book, The Tracking Journal, you mentioned the importance of interval training. How would you recommend to beginners, singer-songwriters to apply interval training to learning to play the guitar and piano and to using their vocal cords? Cheers and thanks in advance." Well, honestly, for singer-songwriters, for songwriters, first of all, I think this is a great exercise. Just doing one of these exercises from the songwriting decks, that's what I created it for. Like that was my first thing that I wanted to do with this. I wanted you to have a pool of, it's 21 exercises for all three decks together. And you basically can just draw a couple of cards and you have an exercise right there and then, right? As for training your vocal cords and for playing the guitar and piano, it just makes sense to set yourself a little bit of time every day and to work on that. Now, interval training, like if you're really serious about what you're doing, if this is something that you want to spend half of your day on is just working on your piano skills and guitar skills, then I'd say play for 45 minutes and then take a 15-minute break and play for another 45 minutes, take a 50-minute break, and kind of alternate between those two for as long as you can go, right? If you're really serious about your craft. If this is more of a kind of like a habit thing, then if you just do if you just do your half hour a day of practicing or 15 minutes, whatever you can do, like start small and build up, but if you want to do just 1 minute in the beginning, that's fine. Just do it every day. That's the most important thing. It's about the practice. It's about the habit forming more so than it is about the skill in the beginning. Like at first, it's about learning how to actually do the thing, and later it's how to do the thing well, right? So, start small and then slowly build it up. I don't think interval training is really important. That important if you're working on something only for half an hour a day, because just like working for 5 minutes and then taking 5 minutes off, that doesn't really make sense, right? Guitar, you can play for half an hour. The guitar for half an hour without growing tired of it, I think. When it comes to your working day, though, that's a different thing. For vocals, by the way, it might actually be beneficial. If you want to practice, like if you do 1 hour every day of vocal training, then I think it is actually very beneficial of doing like 10 minutes, taking 5 minutes off, doing 10 minutes and taking 5 minutes off, just for the reason that if you're working on some complicated stuff, like really high notes or some really challenging things, it can strain your voice, so it's good to take it slow. By the way, I just got really distracted by this beautiful sunset that we're having here. This is some of the most beautiful colors I've ever seen in the sunset. Sorry, that just distracted me for a second there. Okay, okay, otherwise, the interval training is really mostly used if you have a huge block of work ahead of you. So what I used to do was, if I had to, let's say, program a website, right, or write a book, right, I just do that all day long, and I wear myself out very, very quickly. I do that for 4 hours, and like after 2 hours already, I'm writing like half a page an hour. Like it's just my productivity is like really high, and then it goes, steadily declines to a complete halt at some point. And what I found is if I work for like half an hour, 45 minutes maybe, and then take a 15-minute break, maybe half an hour break, and just do whatever I want, which is great because that gives me a lot of half-hour breaks every day where I can do whatever the fuck I want. My productivity goes through the roof, and I can just work an entire day and write a lot of good stuff. And again, like there's just no drop off. I can pretty much continue throughout the entire day, almost at the same energy level. So again, it's more for those bigger chunks of work where interval training becomes worth it. Anything like 45 minutes and up, then I would start considering interval training. Like if you're going to do an hour of guitar playing, that can already get training, especially if you're just starting out. Then I'd probably do 50 minutes of work and then 5 minutes for, maybe 7 or something like that. You can figure that out for yourself. Like everyone is a little bit different. 15 minutes playing, 5 minutes off. 15 minutes playing, 5 minutes off. Yeah, another thing, if you're practicing those instruments, please don't watch series while you're doing it. Please just focus on what you're doing. You're going to be so much quicker. You're going to see some what do you call it? You're going to see some progress so much sooner if you just focus on your instrument. Don't watch something while you're doing it. It's completely going to ruin your entire exercises, your entire practice. Okay? Good. Hopefully that was helpful. Let's move on to the next section today, and that is song feedback. How did that happen? All right. Could you still hear me there? Yes, I'm not completely gone while these videos are playing. For some reason, my iPad turned itself back on again, which is kind of interesting. I don't know how that happened. Anyways, okay, so how many songs do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, so I have to go in around 40 minutes or so. I might have to do another video sometime later this week, maybe on Monday or Tuesday. And I won't be there next Saturday, actually, because I'm in Essen for the entire week almost. So if any one of you guys, by the way, is at Essen next week for the huge board game fair here in Germany, which is the world's biggest board game convention, Spiel, I'm there all week pretty much because I'm with Lookout Games, which is the publishing company of my new board game, which is coming out in February. So yeah, if you're there and if you want to say hello, feel free to come by. At stand, what is it? Like we're in Hall F, and it's just the Lookout stand. You'll see me there. I'm all wearing an orange shirt that has my name on it. Okay, so you can't miss me. Okay, so let's start with a song by Gian, who says, "Here is an Italian pop song. Any of you and Friedemann can give feedback." Okay, cool. So let's check this one out. This is called Al Cur Gentil? I don't know how to pronounce this, but That's some nice playing. Okay, cool, man. All right. I'm digging it. I like it. And man, I love your beard. Can we just scroll down here for a sec so you guys can all just be amazed of this magnificent beard? Beautiful. All right. I wonder which of the two pictures is more recent. Okay, so I'm just saying that because I'm growing up my beard right now. So, okay. Cool, man. I like the vibes of this. Absolutely. And there's not much work here to make this something that's finished, I think, because it's pretty close. Like I think the atmosphere of this is really nice, and to me it works in a lot of respects already. What doesn't work for me is the mixing and the MIDI orchestration every once in a while. I think is really kind of pulls the track down, like because it has a good quality, but it's just like those things just really weigh the whole thing down quite a bit. I think, especially like the woodwinds. The strings have one section where they sound really beautiful and they sound recorded. Whether they were, I think that was probably just a sample, or maybe it's something that maybe it's just a good sample library. I don't know, or maybe you recorded those strings. It sounds like you maybe recorded them. But I just wish that the rest of the orchestration was as good as that. In terms of the MIDI orchestration, I mean, it's just not. The sounds are just like, it's just this really like. You can hear that there wasn't a human behind that playing that, because they would have phrased that completely differently. And those few moments when we have real instruments, it really pops. I'm like, oh yes, this is what this needs to sound like. When the guitar comes in there at the end, I'm like, oh yes, this immediately grabs me. Like, this is just so good, and it's really well played, and there's the dynamics in there, and it's just like. And it just plays with all these ideas, and it gets faster and it g's slower, and it's very emotional playing against this very relaxed kind of background, and I really like that. I think the drum sound is actually fine. Like I know it's also just MIDI, but that actually sounded pretty good to me. I think it's MIDI. It might actually be a real drum set, but it was so low in the mix that it's a little hard to hear maybe. But the drums are fine. But as I said, the woodwinds especially, there's later on in the song, there are some strings that those do sound very sketchy. They sound very, very MIDI, and you can always tell with the transition between two notes. It's like, it's not like, it's not these beautiful transitions from one note to the next. So it's either get yourself some better sample libraries, is what I'm saying, or record this with a live orchestra. Obviously, the latter is going to sound better, but there are some incredible sample libraries out there that are not that expensive. There's definitely some really expensive ones, but there are also... this is a world that I used to live in. I've actually forgotten all of the names of the good sample libraries, but there's plenty. If you just Google it and just ask people for what they would use for this kind of music, you'll definitely find some answers online. if you want to keep using MIDI. If you can obviously record this with a real orchestra, I mean, this whole thing is going to sing, right? Woodwinds, I find, can be a little more challenging. There are some good ones out there, like East West, I know has some good ones. And that was the one called, I keep forgetting their name. There's one that's really, really good. They're super realistic. But anyways, so there's definitely companies out there. But so again, even if you have the right sounds, the mixing still isn't quite right. The vocals, I think, don't always grab me. I think the performance is really good, although there are some moments where the pitch is a little bit off, unfortunately, that kind of take me out of the experience just a little bit. But the emotion is there, and I really like the phrasing of the vocals. Sometimes I wish the phrasing was maybe just a little bit less relaxed, because sometimes it's like instead of going to the note, it will go to a lower note and then slide into the note. And sometimes, like if that's a note that's in the key, then I'm cool with that. But sometimes it just went to a wrong note and then slides into it. And to me, that felt more like a mistake than an actual stylistic question. So, yeah. But overall, like I think the vocals are pretty great. There's definitely some moments in the melody where I felt like the lyrics were taking over rather than the melody getting to do its thing. Sometimes there were too many syllables put into one melody. Sometimes there weren't enough. Sometimes it felt like the melody wanted to go on, but the line was over, and so just that note was held longer, or that it just stopped. That was a little bit of a shame. And it might actually work in my favor that I don't speak Italian. I had Italian classes when I was a kid, but I don't remember much except colors and yeah, that's pretty much it, I'd say. So, yeah. So apart from that, I think, yeah, that's really the only things, though. I think the mixing needs a little bit of work, the MIDI orchestration needs a bit of work, and the vocal melody, I think, could be a little bit more. I think there are some moments where you could find a better compromise between the melody and the lyrics, because right now it seems to shift a little bit too much towards lyrics. In terms of the building of the song, this is a long, slow song. I think it was fine. I think the vocals kind of did it all. Everything was kind of on the vocals, but I think the vocals delivered. So I'm almost willing to say, like, this is fine. But you know me, so I try to add just a little bit more stuff in the choruses. And right now we have just a lot of like smaller instruments that come and go, like the piano that will play a couple of notes and then it's gone for a while. And then we have a clarinet that will play a couple of notes and then it's gone for a while. I'd rather have, like, in the chorus, have a couple of instruments come in, or maybe just one section of instruments that just plays for the entire chorus and then is back out again and comes back in the next chorus, right? So we have a little bit more of a feel, like where do the sections start and where do they end. Lastly, there was one more thing I wanted to mention. What was that again? Let me think. This is the troubles of doing this kind of thing live, because you forget things, and I think it was something important. I forgot. I'm sorry, man. Maybe I'll think of it later, but maybe it wasn't that important. Who knows? I am sorry. That's all I would say about it. I think that's already enough. That's quite a bit of stuff. So hopefully enough to keep you going until the next song. All right. Moving on let's move on to song number 2, which is Francisco's, who says, Friedemann, first poster here, and have to say I really enjoyed last week's live and have built up the courage to post myself. This is my first song I've completed, mixed and mastered myself. It is called Dynamite. I've received feedback from family that the drum sounds are iffy and the vocal performance is lazy, but I would like your opinion, specifically on the mix, sound design, and overall feelings. Thanks. This is Fable Music 9 with Dynamite.
In the dark, I don't know where to aim, where to aim, where to aim. To mend a broken, are we wait for better days, better days, better days, stars have me falling for you every night. I look at you when darkness blinds but my eyes. You light me up, now I'm blowing up like dynamite. You're never too far, you know me so well. You can see in the dark, you crack my shell. I'm falling apart, through thick and thin, I find a way. When days turn to nights and now we can't fight, and my head's not right. I'm running all the way back home tonight. I shine when I find you and sparking new. You light me up, now I'm blowing up like dynamite. Like shooting stars have me falling for you every night. I look at you when darkness blinds but my eyes. You light me up, now I'm blowing up like dynamite. You light me up, now I'm blowing up like dynamite. Like shooting stars have me falling for you every night. I look at you when darkness blinds but my eyes. You light me up, now I'm blowing up like dynamite. You light me up, now I'm blowing up like dynamite. Like shooting stars have me falling for you every night. I look at you when darkness blinds but my eyes. You light me up, now I'm blowing up like dynamite. You light me up, now I'm blowing up like dynamite. Like shooting stars have me falling for you every night. I look at you when darkness blinds but my eyes. You light me up, now I'm blowing up like dynamite.
Cool, man. All right. Yeah, I dig it. Cool. Yeah, I think what you absolutely get right is I absolutely get the feels. I think you have a really good sense for progression. I think like emotionally, I get where this wants to go or where it already is. Like in some places, I'm like, yeah, this is I completely get this. In some parts, it's just not developed enough, I think, and it would just need a little bit more love and care to just get it above that hump. But other than that, man, I mean, I like it. I think it's really cool. I think there's a really nice vibe to it. I think the arrangement is pretty good in parts. There's so the thing that kind of doesn't work for me quite yet is yes, I agree, the drums are a little bit they're not realistic in that, like, you have an open hi-hat at the same time we hear a closed hi-hat, and then the open hi-hat just stops for some reason, so it's this psh, psh, you know, like so that doesn't really quite work. So I think taking another look at that would have been maybe a good idea. And I think for the chorus, going to a closed hi-hat maybe wasn't quite the right thing. I probably would have played the chorus on the ride and have like a crash on the one. Something more like that, you know, like something a little bit more washy, because it's a fairly it's a warm song, and like the hi-hat just it's a little too in the pocket. It's a little too small. It's a little too sexy for that, you know. And the song is like a warmer, more lovely kind of, has a more lovely kind of vibe. So that's one part of it. I think in the beginning I would have to listen to that again, but there were some parts where the drums just it was a little hard to get into the song. I think it's this section here. So here, there's just a little too many grooves going on, a little too many rhythmic ideas that are not working together, and so there's just not, there's, the flow doesn't quite work for me. There's also some moments in the song where the harmony doesn't quite work, where there's just a little, it just doesn't sound quite harmonic, unfortunately. And for such a song, which is, again, has this lovely vibe, we kind of want to keep the chords fairly simple, right? We don't, I mean, it's mostly like the complexity comes in the voice leading and making sure that everything leads nicely into one another and making sure that it sounds as unobtrusive as possible. Unfortunately, here were some moments where
Shine when I find you and sparking new. You light me up, now I'm blowing.
okay, I can't find it right now, but there were one or two chords in there where I was like, a little bit much, maybe like the bass is going to the wrong note here or something like that. Okay, I think in terms of the vocals, I mean, the thing is always like we always put 100% into it, and it sounds like we put in 30, right? That's how it is. That's the unfortunate reality with recording your own vocals, and that's why we have to train our vocals. And that's the great thing about having a home studio is that you can record your vocals over and over again, and just like, hey, if I sing like this, it may not sound perfect in my head, but if I sing like this, it sounds amazing through the speakers, right? So let's just do that. That's one of the best things about having a home studio, I think, as a singer. And I recommend any home studio, like any singer, get themselves at least like a small, like a Zoom or something like that, with like a good microphone in it, to be able to record yourself and really critically listen to yourself, because you get better so quickly if you work on your voice like that, if you can listen to it and then make adjustments based on that. I think what I'm just missing in the vocals is, I think lazy isn't the right word, I think, because this song is something that doesn't have to be like super exciting. I don't want to have a excited vocal in this. I think it should sound relaxed and just as if you're enjoying yourself, right? I think what you could change, though, is a little bit the sound of the vocal in terms of, right now you're using a sort of like a speech kind of singing. It's like, you light me up, like with a very like hard kind of, the German way of singing. And I think what I'm looking for is more of a French way of singing, like, you light me up, a little bit more air, a little bit more this, like as if you were like beaming with happiness, right? If you sing like this, I think you're going to take care of that problem. Also, I think some of the reverb choices, like, so you put a lot of room on your vocals, which made pushed the vocals back and kind of created this distance between me and the singer. And I for this kind of song, I kind of want the vocals close and really warm and really a little fuzzy, even, like you might put something like a saturator on the vocals. And I honestly wouldn't put much reverb on it. If I did, it would be very little. It would be a little bit of a longer reverb tail, and I'd add a lot of pre-delay. And I would probably roll off the top end quite a bit, so it doesn't stick out as much. It's just like a little bit of a tail of reverb that's kind of there in the background, but is almost not noticeable. Other than that, man, I think, cool track. I think you got some nice melodies going. Keep working on this, because this is some good stuff. Looking forward to your next song on here. All right. Next we have, I think we might only have time for one or two more songs. Oh, actually, the rhythm challenge, I think we can do that quickly. So let's do that one first. This is Alvaro's song. Okay, it's this one. Cool, man. The grooves are really coming together now. Cool, man. Drums are sounding really good. Cool. Yeah, that works. That works. See? Feel that? That's cool, right? Doing like a drop like that. It's cool. Yeah, you get it now. Cool, man. It's getting better every single time. Cool, man. Getting better every single time. Honestly, the drums sound great on this. You had a little drop there even. Very, very cool. Like that's a big improvement for sure. I think the bass was a little bit in an annoying frequency range. Like I would probably put that down like a couple of half steps. Like just make the whole song a little bit lower. Maybe just transcribe it down, transpose it down like an octave possibly if it doesn't start to rumble there. It just felt a little bit like, a little too much here, and I'd rather have it like sit a little bit lower. Probably an octave is too much, but just push it down just a little bit in terms of pitch. But yeah, otherwise, man, cool. Yeah, dude, I like it. So right now you're using, I don't know what exactly the key is that you're in, but I'm guessing you were using C and E. Is that right? You can just play this real quick. Yeah. So right. So you were playing C and E. If you want to go for something really dark, you could also try. Start your instead of the C, start your bass lick on the A, right? So go down two whole steps, or like 1.5 steps rather, like to the A, and then use that as your basses. Then you're gonna get a little bit of a darker sound. Like for hip hop, generally we don't really use major, and you are now in a major scale, so if you start with that C, then you're gonna have a major song. Like it's gonna be in major and it's gonna sound happy and not generally what we're going for with hip hop. Generally, hip hop is a cooler, darker, kind of more vibey kind of genre. So typically, we're going to start with an A, right? So make the A your basis of operations and just build everything from there. Okay. So instead of then da 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 da, next time you're going to go da 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 down da da down down da da da, right? It's pretty much those same notes, exactly the same riff, just a little bit lower, and then diatonically transposed to an A. You're gonna get that same melody. It's just that instead of the do do de do, we're gonna play do do de do. So we're gonna play the minor third, and that's gonna sound a little bit darker, a little bit cooler. All right. Other than that, good work, man. All right. Okay. So is there someone who hasn't posted a lot? So I think I'm gonna go for someone. Let's do Brock's song. Okay. So let's do that one first, and I think I might have to do another session sometime early next week. So let's do this one. This is by Brock. He says. Oh, Jesus. I'm sorry, man. They say, this is track 3 so far of the album I am creating called Songs of Reflection. After being plunged into a world not of this reality, the drowning man is left with nothing but his own headspace, a pooling mess of confusion, panic, and anxiety. So this is called Songs of Reflection 3. He. Of course, it's a he. Sorry, man.
You just want to
Cool, man. Cool. That's there's some quite challenging stuff in there in a good way though. Like I think harmonically there's some really nice ideas. Like and it takes a couple of left turns that I didn't see coming. The only thing I wish you would have shown me sometimes, like when you do take those left turns with the harmony, I wish like at first you would have shown me like how it's supposed to resolve and then, take the left turn so that I know, first of all, that you know what the correct way of resolving a chord would be, and secondly, so that it really comes as a surprise. Because the first time we hear a chorus, we don't know what's going to happen, right? So just like a really strong technique is like at least once in your song, you got to show us like how to properly resolve it for this kind of thing. Because you just never quite resolve it. It's possible to do. There's two ways to do this kind of thing. You could either resolve it first and then later on in the song, as you're moving into the bridge, not resolve it and go to this different plane and kind of move into this other hemisphere of sound there. Or you could do the other way around. Not resolve it in the first two choruses and at the end of the song you resolve it, or right before the bridge you resolve it, right? So that you just never let go of that tension up until the bridge, and that's when things really change. Cool. In terms of I think the mix unfortunately is a mess right now. I'm sure you know that. Like there's a lot of MIDI stuff in there which doesn't sound very good, and it's not doing your song any favors. I think you actually have a pretty good song here. It's just like that. The MIDI bass and even MIDI guitars in there. There's some real guitars in there, I think, as well. So I wonder, like, just why didn't you record everything with real guitars? Maybe you couldn't get the takes just right. I think it's something to just work on until it sounds right. Sorry about that. Let me just turn that off. Okay. So, yeah. I'm not dissing you, man. This is how I started out. Like, my first demo that I put out had MIDI drums on them, and I think I did rent a bass for my first demo. At least I did that, and played some real bass for it. But the MIDI, like it's all MIDI drums, and it sounds atrocious. I don't know why I did that. Today, I think I would probably get away with producing a record with MIDI drums because I've gotten really good at producing MIDI drums and making sure that those sound good. I'd probably get away with that. Yeah, but. Yeah, in your case, I don't think. I mean, it sounds pretty phony. It's pretty clear that this is MIDI stuff, and then doing stuff like those fast fills just doesn't feel right because we can't see, like in our inner eye. I can't see someone sitting there playing that. All I can see is you like moving around boxes on your computer. So. There's just not the same liveliness that this would have if this was live. Like if this was a live drummer, it would even be better if they mess up a little bit, right? So I can hear this is difficult and that they're really straining to just play all these notes. I personally prefer that, and I think a lot of musicians would. Same thing for the guitars. If the guitars aren't perfect, like obviously, like you should record it as many times as possible to get it almost right, at least, But if you're missing the last 5% and it's not quite perfect, that's actually a good thing. You don't want it to be too quantized, depending on the style. But for this kind of music, like your guitars can be just a little bit off. Like, and I'm talking about micro timing here. No excuses. Like, it still has to be pretty damn good. But if it's not 100% perfect, that's a good thing in this kind of genre. Otherwise, it reminded me a lot of Queen, and in terms of where you're going with your melodies, even the sounds of the vocal, the way you mixed it, and how you develop your melodies and harmonies. Kind of reminded me of that. I think it works pretty well. Again, I think the major shortcomings of this are the production. But I think there's a really good song here. It just needs more love in the sound department. Because unfortunately, like if you show this to people, people are going to think that's a bad song. And it's not. There's actually something really good hidden here. It's just that you have to look for it behind this thick layer of MIDI sounds. And yeah, so I think if you took this as a demo to a professional studio and say like, hey, this is what I want to record, I think a professional studio would be able to do something with that. You know, if you practice your parts, so you could play all of the parts and record this professionally, I think you could turn this into something pretty great. Yeah. Again, I would work on maybe like adding in a resolution every once in a while so people know what because I'm a musician, I know how this usually is supposed to resolve, and you know as well. But you know, our standard muggle here is not gonna know, and for them it's just gonna sound weird. So I think if you just put in one part where it does resolve and where you just do the normal thing with the melody and the harmony that we expect, it's going to really help people to understand your music better. All right, that's about it. All I have to say for this one. I think a good piece of work, and it sounds like a lot of work too. I think you put a lot of time into this. Honestly, I think it probably would have been less. You would have had to spend less time if you just recorded some real guitars. And some real instruments. But yeah, it doesn't seem like that. But making MIDI sound great is a lot of work. And honestly, for my record, like for the Keynote record, I'm so happy I went with a real life drummer. It just changes the whole game. Like it just took it to a completely different level. Yeah. So and you know, again, you can program MIDI drums. It's possible. Like I have a course on that, the Drum Writing Master Files, which show you how to do that so it sounds professional, so you can actually get away with some very real sounding MIDI drums. But man, guitars is just an instrument you do not want a MIDI. That's just an instrument you never use MIDI for. It just never sounds good. There's some sample libraries which are quite decent, like the Ministry of Rock or Shreddage, especially. Shreddage is pretty good, and I've used that to mock up some guitars, but it can never replace the real thing. And make no mistake, guitars, at least right now, it's just really difficult to replicate that with MIDI. All right. Other than that, nice effort, and thank you all so much for watching this 100th episode of the live stream. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll see you around. Take care. And stay gefährlich.